Son.
Only AT&T offers you unlimited data with HBO included and never pay overages. Visit your local AT&T store and get AT&T Unlimited Plus, our best wireless deal on unlimited data. Plus, save $25 per month on DirecTV. It's entertainment your way.
Requires activating HBO at att.com/unlimited with HBO. Benefits starts within 2 bills. Plan includes stream saver after 22 gigabytes of data usage. AT&T may slow speeds. Must buy AT&T Unlimited Plus and DirecTV before November 11th to get the monthly savings, which start in 3 bills. Prices and channels subject to change. Coverage and other restrictions apply. See store for details.
The following program is a podcast1.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin, Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Reno, Nevada. I'm out here visiting my brother-in-law, trying to look at a couple pieces of property, maybe try to find the Broken Skull Ranch 2.0. So far, no success, but we're having a damn good time being out here. It's some beautiful country. The dogs are able to run around and enjoy themselves off-leash, which is a rarity because you can't keep dogs off-leash in Los Angeles, because if they were off-leash, and I'm on the Unleashed show, they'd run in the goddamn road and get hit by a car, or somebody's pit bull would jump on them. So anyway, the dogs are having a blast. I'm enjoying the weather. It's very peaceful out here. There's way less helicopter sirens and bullshit, so it's been very relaxing. Anyway, while I've been out here, got to take care of business and do my podcast. So while we're out here looking at things, trying to take care of business, I got to take care of my business and get my podcast in. So anyway, I talked with Court Bauer the other day, a little bit about pro wrestling. Me and him got a podcast coming up. We're going to rehash an old pay-per-view that we were discussing, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And it's always fun talking with him. But one of the reasons I came out here was to also get an interview from a guy that came up on my email. I've been trying to come out here to Reno, Nevada, and interview Tesla guitarist Frank Cannon for a couple of years. As you guys know, I check all my emails every single day. I answer as many as I can, but I read all of them. And it turns out I got an email a long time ago from a guy who's a part of Red Hawk Records named Dwayne. And he'd heard me mention Tesla a few times on the podcast because, man, I've been following those guys from day one. They're one of my favorite bands. And so I've been trying to interview Frank Cannon, their guitarist, one of their guitarists, for a couple of years now. We just never have crossed paths. But anyway, in the meantime, in all these years, Dwayne sent me yet another email. I'm going to read that email for you and tell you how I got to interview the guy I'm talking to on the podcast today about selling guitars, playing guitar. He's a hell of a guitar player, and the music business and the band that he started. Turns out it's a hell of a goddamn band. The name of the band is called, if you know the California area that they play in or the Nevada area that they play in, man, I'll tell you what, there's a band with a damn good sound, damn good guitars, good singers, just great shit. I wouldn't put them over if I didn't think they was worth the fuck. Name of the band, you can check them out on YouTube. I bought their album, their debut album. I downloaded it on iTunes for $10. A bunch of great songs. It's kind of classic rock, guitar-driven, great vocals, and it's called the Greg Golden Band. And Greg Golden is the owner of Bizarre Guitars. He's been in business since 1974. Over 40 years this guy's been selling guitars, and he's got a gun shop next door called Bizarre Guns, of all things. And we talk a little bit about guns towards the end of the podcast. And I went down there. He's got a place in the bottom of the record store called The Vault, where he's got some extremely valuable, very rare guitars. And I went down there, and it turns out Greg Golden's got a little bit of a bodybuilding career as his background as well. So I'll tell you what, as soon as I walked in there, shook his hand, we started just talking back and forth a million miles an hour. It just turns out he's just like a friend I'd never met. And wasn't any problems talking with the guy. He's very talkative, and we had a great time. It was a great visit. And I highly recommend you go to iTunes and checking out Greg Golden Band. Now, This is classic rock with good riffs, good hooks, good melodies, and I enjoy the shit out of it. So if you're into just like heavy thrash metal, it might not be for you, but because I'm still so stuck in my old musical ways, it's hard for me to listen to a lot of the stuff that's going on today, other than my favorites. And anyway, it was a breath of fresh air talking to this guy, and I had a good time talking to him. Here's the email, and this was a chain of emails that finally came in from this guy, Dwayne. He wrote me. He said, "Hey, Steve, I was listening to your Q&A podcast earlier this week, and I heard you give a shout-out to Tesla again. Thanks so much. The guys were blown away the first time you mentioned them. I'm writing to see if you'd still be interested in having Tesla guitarist and co-founder Frank Hannon on your podcast someday. I know we spoke about it a few summers ago, but Frank was on the road at the time, and he's since wrapped up a worldwide tour with Def Leppard and Poison, and will be off the road for a few months as the band takes a break from the road and starts planning the next Tesla album. He has one more leg in September for 3 weeks, but after that, his schedule is pretty clear from October this year until April next year. I think you guys would have a great time together, and the more I listen to you and hear Frank, I see so many parallels between the life of a pro wrestler and a rock star. I'm sure you guys have played many of the same venues over the years, traveled the same roads, and probably performed for many of the same fans. I've known Frank for 20 years, and he's one of the nicest, most humble people I've ever met, and I think you could do a great interview with him, not only about the craziness of the 80s rock scene, but also about what it's like out there today. He recently got into the sport of cutting. Being from Texas, I'm sure you're familiar with horse cutting. If not, he could talk your ear off about it. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about cutting horses and working cows. He goes on to say, I think I heard you were up in the Sparks area a while back after you sold the ranch. One of our good friends is a guitar and gun shop owner in Reno named Greg Golan. Greg owns Bizarre Guitars in Reno and has sold guitars to every name you could imagine. He has a section of the store underground called The Vault, where he stores rare vintage, highly valuable guitars that he keeps under lock and key. Greg is an interesting character and would make a great interview on his own as well. Over 30 years ago, he sold guitars to a long-haired, skinny kid from South Sacramento named Frank, who was in a band called City Kid, which soon after became Tesla. The guy has some stories. Thanks for your time. I'm a huge fan and never miss an episode. Please let me know if you'd be interested in setting up an interview. Frank would probably bring his guitar down to 317 Gimmick Street and jam some tunes for you. Thanks, Dwayne. Well, I reached back out to Dwayne. I said, hey, man, let me talk to this Greg guy. So he gave me his number. I called Greg up, and we just started shooting the breeze and just got off like gangbusters. So I'm down here looking for land. I needed a podcast. I've been wanting to talk to Greg. You guys know I'm a music fanatic. I love my guitar work, especially at the high level with people that can really play. And I was thinking I was just going to go over and talk to this guy about selling guitars to everybody. But after I listened to that album, I'm like, God damn it, some bitch is a hell of a goddamn guitar player. Great vocalist. What a fucking band. Frank Hannon sits in on a lot of the sessions. So anyway, I went down and talked to Greg Golan, owner of Bizarre Guitars and Bizarre Guns in Reno, Nevada. Had a great time. And the podcast that you're about to listen to is indeed that very podcast, which Dwayne emailed me, and he's the one that helped set that up. So thanks, Dwayne, for helping me set up an interview with a great guy that I really enjoyed talking to. I'm going to give a quick shout-out. Greg's wife has a YouTube show called The Vault with Shonda Goldman, and, man, she interviews the who's who of rock and roll down there in The Vault, and she's always well-prepared and does a great interview. She's talked to Zakk Wylde, man, all the guys from Tesla. I mean, Uli John Roth, every damn rock and roll guy that comes through there to buy guitars or to say hello or to get their stuff worked on. She does some great interviews, so you might want to check out her show on YouTube called The Vault. And she also does some stuff with her husband where you can get some more background on their band. Just real nice folks, down to earth, and I had a great time talking to them. I hope you enjoy the podcast. We're all over the place here. I'm just shooting the breeze. I'm excited talking music. And then Greg showed me a couple of pictures of his bodybuilding days. So we switched towards the end, start talking about nutrition and old school training and how he was able to get into shape. And the dude was built back in the day. Second place Mr. Nevada contest, some stuff like that. But dude had a great physique. Now he's a badass guitarist. It was a fun talk. I hope you enjoy the listen. But before I get to the first piece of business or get into the interview, I've got to say, holy smokes, I was at dinner the other night in Reno, Nevada, and I totally missed the last episode of the Broken Skull Challenge, and the women came out there, and it was a badass episode. Every one of those ladies was talking trash, and it was just an awesome episode. I had so much fun with those ladies. They brought so much energy, and they were ready to go, and nobody was spinning them up. Nobody was producing them. They were just talking that trash, and they were ready to back it up, and some did, some didn't. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't give results out anymore on my podcast because so many people have got on me on the email about it, but because they've DVR'd it and they haven't seen it yet. But, oh, man, the last person that got on that Skullbuster, I won't say who it was just training specifically bodybuilding. They weren't ready for that Skullbuster or an obstacle course to begin with, but did great in those brackets. And you have to see her performance. Great lady, great performance, great guts. It's just, you'll see what happens. You've got to prepare for that Skullbuster because it's chipping away at every piece of your body, 10 different obstacles over the course of that half-mile run that it is. So you got to watch it on your DVR. Please set your DVRs. Man, this next episode, I keep telling you guys, things are starting to ramp up. Coming up next Tuesday when we come back with the guys, things start ramping up and things start getting intense. Mark my words. Make sure you check out Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge only on CMT, 10/9 Central. Set your DVRs and make sure you check out the action. If you haven't seen the women this week, past Tuesday, you got to check them out, man. Badass women. Appreciate all of them for coming out. They were cool as hell, and I had a great time, and I hope they enjoyed it as much as I did. It was awesome. We're looking for badasses, and all these ladies were super cool. Greg Golan of the Greg Golan Band and Bizarre Guitars and Bizarre Guns coming up next.
Hello, Dick Enberg here, and I'm mighty excited to announce the start of my new show, Sound of Success, right here on Podcast One. For 60 years, I've rubbed shoulders with sports greatness, from athletes in the world of football, baseball, college and professional basketball, golf, tennis, the Olympics, and so much more. Join me as I explore in-depth stories from the greatest figures in the world of sport, and I'll share a few of my own. Download new episodes of Sound of Success every Thursday on the Podcast One app, Apple Podcasts, and PodcastOne.com. Oh, my.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
All right, man, I'm rolling sound. I'm down here at Bizarre Guitars in Reno, Nevada with Greg Golan. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. How you doing?
God dang, I'm doing awesome. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you, too.
I'm going to read you an email, just the last paragraph of an email. I get people listening to the show all over the world, and it turns out someone that knows Frank Hannon from the rock band Tesla was a fan of the show.
All right.
And I'm a big Tesla fan from way back, from when they came out with their first album. And Frank Hannon's a good friend of yours.
Oh, he is. He's awesome.
So anyway, I get this email, and this is going back a couple of years. I haven't talked to Frank Hannon yet. I'm going to one of these days, probably after talking to you.
Absolutely.
Check it out. He sends me this long email, which I've read during the open of this show, and I'm going to read you the last paragraph. He says he's telling me about crossing paths with Frank. Frank's been on tour. We've been trying to get in touch with each other for a couple of years. Last paragraph, he says, I think I heard you were in the Sparks area a while back after you sold the ranch. One of our good friends is a guitar and gun shop owner in Reno named Greg Golan. Greg owns Bizarre Guitars in Reno and has sold guitars to every name you could imagine. He has a section of the store underground called The Vault, where he stores rare, vintage, highly valuable guitars that he keeps under lock and key. Greg is an interesting character and would make a great interview on his own as well. Over 30 years ago, he sold guitars to a long-haired skinny kid from South Sacramento named Frank, who was in a band called City Kid, which soon after became Tesla. This guy has some stories. Please let me know if you'd be interested in setting up an interview. Frank would probably bring his guitar down to 317 Gimmick Street and jam some tunes for you. Dwayne. You know Dwayne at Red Hawk Records?
I sure do. Dwayne Sarfus.
Well, God dang it, Dwayne, I appreciate you sending that email. I haven't talked to Frank yet, but God dang, I've been here at Bizarre Guitars for about an hour, As soon as I shook Greg Golden's hand, and I just got finished downloading and listening to his album that he came out with in 2015, which totally rocks. That's a badass album. I dig it.
All right.
A badass album, and we shook hands, started talking, shooting the breeze, kind of breaking the ice a little bit. God dang, Greg looks at me and goes, God dang, you're in pretty good shape. He goes, what are you training, or how are you training? And then he breaks out some bodybuilding pictures. So not only is the guy a world-class guitarist, not only does he have a hellacious band that I'm going to turn you on to at the end of the podcast, but the dude also has an athletic background and used to bodybuild. That dang, what a background, dude. I would have never figured you to have such a diverse background. I was trying to tell people way back in my podcast days, there was two things I wanted to be way back in the day when I was growing up. First thing I wanted to do was be the front man of a rock and roll band. But I can't sing, Greg. Can't sing worth the shit. So my dad played lead guitar in a country western band. So I figured, hell, I'll be the lead guitarist. I'll be the, lead guitarist is a badass. You know, you are one.
All right. Enjoy it.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't apply myself and didn't practice enough. So I said, you know what? Hell, I'll play bass guitar. It's got 2 less strings. It will be easier. Hell, I didn't apply myself, Greg, and my parents wouldn't buy me a drum kit. So dreams of being a rock and roll star were all out the window. And I did okay for myself in a squared circle in a business called professional wrestling. Hey, let's talk about you. We're here at Bizarre Guitars. We've been shooting the breeze down here. And right now, let's talk about the business a little bit before we get rocking and rolling. No pun intended. Tell me about Bizarre Guitars. You've been in business since 1974.
Started out the business in 74, played in bands my whole life, and prided myself on having the best instruments, best deals, etc. And we've been here for 43 years.
Hey, man, what got you to start playing guitar?
My mom, oddly enough, sang in a country western band when I was a kid, and my dad played a little acoustic guitar, and just sort of got a guitar on my 7th birthday, and just sort of gradually learned how to play chords and leads and different things, picked out melodies, and been hooked and obsessed with it ever since.
Now, were you a guy that just kind of, it came to you naturally as you kept on it? Were you taking lessons? Did your dad help you? How'd that process go? For me, it was brutal because I just didn't understand the language.
I never took a lesson, and I still to this day don't know much theory. Everything kind of comes to me from playing by ear and, trial experimentation. I've been playing for so long that, you just finally, when you go through and you play a number of songs, you learn different licks and how they apply to different songs and keys and things. But no, I never have taken any lessons, any formal training of any kind.
Man, when I listen to your music and God dang, Greg Golden Band, I don't want to insult you or your fan base, but here in the Nevada area and California, many people know of you and your sound, but across the world, maybe they don't. Man, I'm about to introduce you guys to the best rock and roll band you probably haven't heard of. And I mean that as a compliment.
All right, thank
Holy
you so very
smokes,
much.
dude, when I downloaded that album this morning, I was blown away. Because when we hooked up, I knew I was coming over here to interview you. We were going to talk about all these great guitars down here, some stories about, trading and selling guitars. And then I said, well, he's a musician as well. I got to do my due diligence. I got to do my research. And boy, I put that album on, and I was blown away. I was pleasantly surprised, and I didn't know what to expect. And y'all's genre or y'all's brand of rock and roll is the exact stuff that I grew up on, and I kind of stopped listening to a lot of modern stuff. This is no disrespect to anybody out there, but it just seems like the musical trends or whatever I grew up on, Tesla, Scorpions, Boston, Jesus Christ, Foghat, Iron Maiden, of course you got the Megadeth and Metallica in there, Dokken, Tesla, Scorpions, god dang, Great White, you played with Great White, like Y&T you played with. Y&T was one of the best bands I've ever heard that didn't get a gigantic break, and they're still playing to this day. But anyway, it's that, and I'm missing a whole lot of bands that I'm not naming because I've been hitting it with so many steel chairs. But y'all's music fits right in with that stuff, just stuff that's really well written, great lyrics, great guitar work. It just seems like the guitar guys are kind of, not showing up as much. You rip like a sumbitch on this album. I love guitar style, and Frank Hannon plays on some of the songs as well. You guys are great friends. But how did you come up with the sound that, you ended up with?
Well, I have to credit Frank Hanna for majority of that stuff, because I came to Frank with some licks and some good song ideas. And of course, I'm not a professional songwriter or anything. So a lot of the things I had, the choruses were reversed and the verses were not long and so forth. And Frank liked what he heard. But he took the songs and arranged them where they made sense, and we added a vocalist and vocals to them, and Frank produced it, and I'm really proud of the record. Frank took the initiative to take those songs and took those licks and create those into actual songs.
Who did you look to as you were growing up that influenced you as far as your guitar playing style?
Richie Blackmore, Deep Purple, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin. I'd say those were two of the main ones. Of course, there's many other guitar players, but that was sort of like the guys I liked the best. I always liked the Deep Purple sound, the Rainbow sound, and we kind of have that vibe on some of the songs that we've done. We did a remake of Man on a Silver Mountain on that first record,
I love
too.
that. Yeah.
And Frank has really helped with so many different aspects of everything in terms of producing, the recording. I didn't have much experience. I've recorded a few things before, but the recording was kind of new to me, and the songwriting was way new to me. And I was really excited to hear my licks and changed around a little bit and add chorus and add everything to it, and then have the amazing production and the amazing recording that Frank provided.
With as long as you've been playing guitar, I mean, now that you're with the band, Greg Golden Band, I mean, a great sound, why did it take so long?
I was always busy, always had the store as my first, it was my money maker. It's hard to make money playing in a band, and I was successful, very busy. My kids were going through school. My son was an athlete, and I supported him and coached him for many years. But I always had a local band, and I'm proud to say I played with Chuck Ruff, who was the drummer from Edgar Winter for many years, and was a great influence for rhythms in my life. And always had a local band, but it was always kind of backburned to the business itself. And now, with Frank and his help with me, I've kind of put this in the forerunner of doing things.
But man, growing up, because let me ask you a question. Going back to the song Cherokee, was your dad born in Texas and your mom in New Orleans, or was that just a song?
No, that's it right there.
I knew that was true.
Yeah, and Frank Hannon wrote those
Native
lyrics.
American?
I'm 40.4% Native American. I got tested on Ancestry.com. I already knew I was Cherokee.
Yeah.
But no, Frank Hannon asked me, because he said, we're going to do a song kind of about you, and Frank created those lyrics, and Randy Skoll sang it. But that was a song basically about my life. Yes,
I love that song. And I figured, man, it's got to apply to this guy.
Yeah,
I know you're Nevada, born and bred, and Reno's been your home forever.
But I was born on Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, and my dad was in the Air Force in 1952.
And so your dad was a builder or contractor, and like what the Golden Valley, all those, the area that he developed back in the day is named after him, correct?
That's correct, yes. And he was a famous contractor here in Reno.
So, dude, you've done interviews about Bizarre Guitars, and and listening to interviews on YouTube from Frank Hannon and a lot of other guys. I mean, man, if Reno was the place to come, if you were within a couple 100 miles here, or Axe coming through here as well, but this was the place to come to get a guitar, as you sold him a bunch of them. So if you get into business in '74, like if you for a while you were working with your dad, helping him build,
correct,
and then you branched off. And you started, with your music and playing, and then you just started collecting, and you had all these guitars. When did you make it a conscious effort or plan to say, hey, I'm going to start a guitar shop, and 40 years later, the damn thing is still in business and doing great?
I played in local bands, and then we were booked, and we started playing out-of-town shows a lot. And I started going to out-of-town venues, and I'm seeing, I can buy that guitar for $150 and come back and sell it for $250. And I'd do that, and it was working out. And pretty soon, I created this business where I was buying tons of guitars and selling tons of guitars to the point that very lucrative. And nobody else was really doing that. And so I came back specializing in buying vintage, Fenders, Gibsons, Gretches, Guilds, Martins, and fixing them up. And I was a good repairman, and I had some guys working for me that were really good too. And just created a business and got a good reputation. And then we built our building here in 1979. And put the vault in here, and we sell, retail, wholesale, all over the world on vintage, etc.
Man, how do you go about, like in the formative years of grabbing some of the guitars we're about to talk about and look at in here in the vault in your store? Like, how did you know back then, hey man, this is a bad motherfucker. This is going to be an expensive guitar, or this is a collector?
Most of those guitars, I kind of knew the values of things. I really knew I had a good knack for values. But just knowing, back in '74, pre-CBS Strat was only 9 years before. So you could buy, for instance, a 65 Strat, if you looked around for $150, $200, and they were worth going for $300. And so I just bought things that, if I could make a quick buck on it and give somebody a really good deal on it, that's what I look for. And then I became very knowledgeable because I was doing a huge volume of buying no-caster Fenders and broadcasters and 52 Les Pauls and 63 335s, etc. And I became very knowledgeable on the years, and then I started buying more and more, and it became a full-time business buying and selling. We had huge Japanese business in the 80s, unbelievable. And their economy boomed, and of course, like a lot of things that the Japanese do buy or did buy, they're based on the American value. So if it was popular in America, it was popular in Japan. And we had guys flock over here to buy vintage guitars. And that's kind of how I got the popularity of selling the vintage.
Hey, man, let's talk about just, everybody knows me. I come from the world of pro wrestling. I don't know guitar speak. I don't know guitar technology. I know the couple of models that I'm about to ask you about. So by no means am I trying to be a know-it-all. If I don't know shit, I'm just asking you basic questions.
It's all good, man. Anything.
Let's talk about the Gibson Les Paul.
My favorite guitar.
That's what you like to play. And as we had a phone conversation a while back, me being a wannabe guitar player, that was going to be my go-to axe as well. Why was the Gibson Les Paul so iconic and been so successful? Is it the shape? Is it the sound? Is it the combination? What is it? What gives the Les Paul its magic?
I would have to say, for me, it's the humbucking pickups. The fact that they have a tune-o-matic bridge, so you can perfectly tune it. So an open note on an open string and the 12th fret is exactly the same. You have a tune-o-matic bridge, like on this 59 Gibson, and you have a tune-o-matic bridge that you can adjust the strings so that the height or the width from the nut to the octave is the same from the octave to the bridge, and that allows you to hit a D chord on the 2nd fret and play a D chord on the 14th fret, and it's the same. So that's part of it. And then humbucking pickups are very, very strong, where Stratocaster pickups aren't as strong, and they might be considered cleaner. I've always liked the Les Paul sound because they had plenty of balls, and you can get any sound you want. They're a little heavier, and the workmanship is amazing, especially on the 50s and 60s models. And that's just my personal favorite. For every guy that likes Les Paul, there's another guy that would like a Strat or a Tele as well.
Hey, man, let's talk about the Strat real quick, because, I'm a guitar fanatic, and Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of my favorite guitar players of all time. He played that Fender Strat. Jesus Christ, what was his number one? It was a 50, was it 58?
I'm not sure on the year on that.
But anyway, his number one guitar was a Fender Strat, and man, he played those heavy strings. Seemed like he played them high, and he just bent the shit out of them.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I've never seen anybody kind of play like that. And it's funny because that guy left such a impression on me after he passed away in a helicopter crash. I mean, when it came out, the tribute album, you had like Buddy Guy, Robert Cray, Bonnie Raitt. I mean, all these people that were awesome blues people. They did that tribute album to him, and man, it's just weird to watch somebody try to play Stevie Ray stuff because no one can sound like that guy because of the way he plays. Talk to me about the Fender Strat. You're a Les Paul guy, but tell me about that because many people have chosen to go that Strat route.
Well, Strat first year was 54. In fact, I have serial number 6 in the vault. And Strats have a lot more versatility than other guitars. They have 3 pickups, and you can basically get many different tone variations. And they're typically cleaner. Like the ohms on a Strat pickups are like 5.6, and on a Les Paul 7.5 to 8.5. So you have more power on a Gibson. And I guess if you're playing classic rock like we like, it gives you more balls, more sustain, etc. But if you're playing cleaner, and not necessarily cleaner, because you can use effects. Like a lot of guys will take a Stratocaster and use a booster or a fuzz or whatever to get the rock and roll sound, much like Jimi Hendrix or Clapton always played a Strat. He didn't play distorted, played more clean. So there's different ways to get the end column, which is a good sound. And there are a lot of guys that like a Strat better than a Paul. Strats are typically 3 pounds, 4 pounds lighter, which is a huge thing. After playing a Les Paul for 50 years, you have neck issues.
Right.
So Fender is a lighter way to go. And it's just different. It's like some guys like Chevys, some guys like Fords. Same thing.
What is your setup? I mean, not that I'll understand all of it, but man, you have a very rich tone. It's just it sounds heavy. It has weight to it or balls to it, and it's very clean. So I mean, how did you come upon that sound? Because I know when you were talking with Frank Hannon, and we're going to bring up Flying V here in a minute, but you were talking about your pickups and the humbucking pickups, and what you were using there, or what gives you the sound that you're looking for? How did you create that?
Okay, so my guitar that I use, so my number one is a 54 Les Paul that I took and put a tune-o-matic on because they kind of a stop tailpiece. And I've changed the pickups on that guitar probably 50 times over the years. As guitars came in, I wanted the hotter sound. So I have really super hot pickups on the guitar. And I use no effects other than an Echoplex. I'm one of the few guys around that does not use a pedal board. No wahs, no fuzz.
Now, what's an Echoplex?
Echoplex is a repeater, sort of like an Echo unit. I use an EP3 Echoplex, which is made in the late 60s. And I have several of those. In fact, Frank Hannon gave me one of those. And I use those Echoplexes to give a little bit of preamp and echo, but that's the only actual effect that I do use. So I do play pretty clean, directly into the amp, no fuzz, boosters, etc. And so that's part of the thing. And then my pickups on my guitar are very, very loud, and I use Legend amps, which are kind of an odd amp that was made in the early 80s. They're a tube preamp and a solid state power amp. But I really like the sound of what I do. And I have kind of a unique sound.
It is unique, because when I listen to you play, I'm thinking, man, who does this guy remind me of, and who does he sound like? And it's a very signature sound.
All right.
Like when I listen to Boston, the Tom Schultz sound is, you think, hey, you immediately know that's him. Not necessarily a burner, but I mean, you know that's his sound, that's him playing. So you have a very unique sound that sounds like you. And sometimes when I'm listening to you playing, I'm thinking, man, maybe there's a little Santana there, or just a tad, but maybe there, and there's, I'm thinking the other guy I was trying to think of, but I'm thinking, no, man, the dude's got a real original sound. You don't remind me of anybody. And I mean that as a compliment.
Thank you so much.
You got a great sound, and there's a million guitar players out there. So it's just badass. Going on to the other guitars I want to ask you about, and sorry I'm talking so fast, I get excited sometimes, especially down here with all these cool guitars and stuff in this basement that we're about to talk about. Talk to me about, just because of the iconic guitars to a guy like me, when we're talking about the Les Paul, you got the Fender Strat, then you've got that Fender Telecaster. Talk to me about that Telecaster and what was attracting people to that thing.
The Telecaster is a kind of a unique animal. It's two pickup, and it's really I think, I mean, you can get a rock sound with a Tele, and modern music uses a lot of, but it's kind of known for country. Like Merle Haggard used to be one of my best clients for buying the old 52 Blackguard Teles. They always had a black pickguard from 53 and before. And so they're uniquely clean, and the ohms on those pickups are like in the 5s, so they're very low. And, rock guys that are playing, classic rock would struggle to play a Tele without having some sort of effects, booster, fuzz, something like that.
Right.
But I think they're primarily for country. But again, that's as soon as I say that you'll find a rock guy using a Tele.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen uses a Tele, and he's kind of a rock guy.
God dang. You used to deal with Merle Haggard?
I did. I sold Merle probably 20 guitars.
God dang. And here's the thing. Everybody, like with George Strait, in the country genre, and George Strait is my guy. Merle Haggard was that guy for many, many years. He's a legend. And the thing about this, as great as Merle was at singing, hell, he could pick.
He could, too.
A lot of people don't give him credit or don't even know that guy could pick his ass off.
Oh, yeah, and he was very particular. He liked Blackguard 52 and 53 Teles was the only thing that he would buy for me. But when I get those in, he would buy those, and he could play. He was a good player. Super nice guy, too.
Super nice guy. Another guy I want to ask you about, another guitar I wanted to ask you about, just as far as iconic, the Flying V.
Flying V. Oh, say it.
And I got I got turned on the Flying V. I saw people playing them. Randy Rhoads played one with Ozzy.
Right.
But when I really noticed the Flying V was when I started reading more and more about Stevie Ray Vaughan and who influenced him. And at one point, I guess Jimmy had taken his records away. He was tired that Stevie kept borrowing all of his records. So he had to go to the music store. Didn't know what to buy. So I went to the clerk behind the counter, and this is what I read. And he says, what's the heaviest or what's the coolest, album that you have in here right now? And the guy went over and he picked up a Lonnie Mack album. It was Wham. He sold that album to Stevie, and Stevie went home and listened to Lonnie Mack on that Flying V. And if you listen to Stevie Ray after listening to Lonnie Mack, he got a lot of his sound, or at least his technique, from Lonnie Mack.
All right.
And it was super interesting. But tell me about the Flying V. Not everybody uses it, but it's a cool looking guitar. But to me, it just didn't seem like it had enough body to it.
Flying V is an unusual guitar. The first Flying V's, I have a 58 in the case here. It's one of 82 made. Those are Carina wood. It's actually a wood that's considered a poisonous wood, and Gibson made those guitars from 58 and 59 only. And the other person I know that likes a Flying V, Frank Hannon, loves Flying V's. In fact, we did a music video with that very guitar.
Yeah.
And so, they're just a different animal. They're set up much like a Gibson Les Paul in terms of the bridge and the pickups. And similar type sound. It's still got, plenty of output. It's just a little bit unique sound, maybe a little brighter than a Les Paul, and certainly odd shaped and a little different.
Are you familiar with Lonnie Mack?
I am.
And the way he put the whammy bar on there, or tremolo, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, right. He used the Bigsby on the very bottom of it, on the very end of the V, which is unusual. I couldn't even believe it would work, but he made it work.
Man, I've recommended this before, on this show. If you ain't heard of Lonnie Mack, get on YouTube and type in "Stop" and watch Lonnie Mack play that and anything else. He plays a couple things with Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. The dude was lights out. He's kind of ahead of his time, because almost anybody that came through the area that he was in stopped by. I mean, some of the biggest bands in the world would stop by and see Lonnie Mack, because he was kind of considered one of the first guitar virtuosos that there was back in the day. So
awesome player.
So you know a little bit about him?
A little bit, not a whole great deal, but I knew the V in information and stuff.
Well, talk to me about this Flying V, and tell me about the wood they made this guitar with. Would you say there was 80 or 82 of them?
There was 82 made on the 50s original first run Flying V, rosewood fingerboard, and a Carina body, gold parts.
So what's the deal with the Carina body and it being poisonous?
No big deal, really. It was sort of like the government's version of the EPA outlawed the importation of Carina wood. It's no more poisonous than, say, redwood. Like when you're kids, you jump across a redwood fence, you get redwood splinter, same kind of thing. But there was kind of limited wood, so they only made a few, and then they turned the rest of those into lap steels, which are on the bottom there, like a Carina lap steel. And it's kind of like mahogany, only a little bit different. And it's not drastic tone difference. It's just a very rare guitar. It's considered to be one of the top rarest guitars in the world.
Where did you, I heard the story of this. I think you were talking to Frank Hannon about it. You found this from a lady who played in a country and western band.
That's correct. And I bought it in the early 70s. And I was playing a gig, and her sister came to me and said she had her sister lived in Texas and had a Flying Y. Of course, I knew what she was talking about. She showed a picture of it. And I agreed on a price, and I bought it in the early 70s, and I've had it all these years. And I've never had another Flying V. I've had some Explorers, which are just as rare. I've had 3 Explorers in my life. But that's the only real V, and I managed to hang on to it all these years.
Now, the stuff that I see and the people are hearing about that's in the display cabinets, that is stuff that is off limits, not for sale.
Correct, but you got to remember, back in the day, back in the 70s, this is how I made my living, was buying and selling this exact same thing. And as I got older, I finally had a few of these things. I had things for sale, and I thought, you know what? If I don't put a few of these things away, they're not going to be around anymore. So I managed to save a lot of the things I had. But for every original pre-CBS Strat that I have in the counter, I've sold hundreds, thousands maybe.
Say it again. What is a pre-CBS Strat?
Pre-CBS Strat is a Stratocaster. It was made before February of 1964. And pre-CBS means Columbia Broadcasting Systems when they bought out Fender. Leo Fender sold the company in February of '64, and everybody says the quality was better during the Leo Fender days, and then CBS changed it. Like the first thing they did is they made the peg head 25% larger and a larger decal, and still like 66 Strats and 68 Strats are wonderful pieces as well. So it's kind of more of a myth, but it is history, and they were all super handmade, even in the CBS days, and even the current Fender stuff is fantastic. It's just different sound, and it's just like vintage cars or anything. It's
when you started going back and forth with the lady on this guitar, and the price you agreed to, like, did she know of its value even back then in the 70s?
I spent basically I had worked all summer for my father, and had money set aside. I had $1,000, and that's what I bought it for. It was $1,000.
That's a bargain.
Yeah, because they're worth. I'd say that one's worth probably $300,000, $350,000.
Holy smokes! Are you kidding me?
No, it's considered to be one of the rarest guitars in the world.
God dang, that is amazing.
And the only one guitar that I have that's even worth more than that in the store, I'd say that's the second most valuable guitar I've got in the store. I have a '59 Burst that I've had for 35 years, and it's totally original, and it's a really high output pickups. Really flame top. It's really lightweight. It doesn't even weigh. It's. I think it's 7 pounds 11 ounces, if I'm not mistaken, which is super light for a Les Paul, and it sounds killer. Although I still like my number one the best. I've played all these guitars live, so I want to say something too here. The only person that I would allow to play any of these guitars is my dear friend Frank Hannon. So Frank is we're gonna go through. Right now he has a 1966 Gibson L5, and he's coming out with a new covers album, and he's going to use a few of these vintage guitars that are behind the glass on the album. So it'll be interesting. We'll have him play the '59 Burst and the '58 V, and we'll see what comes of that.
So how did you come upon this 59 burst?
Oh,
And what's this thing worth? If it's worth more than the Flying Veal there at 300.
I'd say that's worth 350 to 400. But I've sold
But
about
what makes it so valuable?
just the rarity of it and the fact that it's just the best of the best, and it's just the holy grail of all electric guitars. They've had many remakes that are still killer remakes, but this is an original 59, which is there's very few of those around.
I was telling you on the phone, I was telling you about my dad who played lead guitar in a country band. I think it was a 58 Gibson Birdland, because had a little bit of acoustic, hollow
Nice
body.
guitar, way nice.
Yeah, he had that thing refinished a few years ago when he wasn't playing anymore, and decided to sell it. And he, it kind of almost broke his heart. It's bittersweet.
Did he get rid of it?
Yeah, he
Oh,
had to get
man.
rid of it. And, but anyway, because I was telling you about him playing, I had to tell you what he
No,
was
that's a really nice guitar. In fact, Frank Henn and I were having a discussion about he was asking me about to play in a Birdland, and I don't have a vintage Birdland here for whatever reason. They're not the most popular guitar in the world.
Right.
So I said, take the 66 L5. And so he's kind of checking it out to see if he gets the sound he's looking for. Ted Nugent made Birdlands famous.
That's what I was going to ask you. I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
man, what's Ted playing back in the day?
all
Because
Birdlands.
it sure looked like a Birdland to me.
Always Birdlands. Always, he was the guy that made that guitar famous, really, even though it's kind of like a thinner jazz guitar.
Right.
He was the guy that played rock guitar on it, so to speak. And there wasn't many guys that playing the Birdlands, really, besides Ted Nugent.
Hey, man, and as I remember my dad's back in the day, his stack was, I don't know if you remember these old amps. It was,
Custom?
damn
Tuck
right
and
with
roll.
a K.
Did I read your mind or what, bro?
It was silver, what's it called? Metallic silver, that foam.
Tuck and roll.
Tuck and roll.
Yep. I got a
And
black one in there.
I think two 12s or whatever it was.
Yep.
It might have been 15s. And I remember taking that thing apart many times. I used to hide my mom's cigarettes in there when we were trying to get her to quit smoking. But that guitar was in my room, and I tried to learn how to play guitar with it. And I went to the bass. It did fine on the bass, too. I was so shitty on the bass, Greg, that the only thing I could play was the beginning of Kool and the Gang's Ladies' Night. Jump now.
All right.
That was all I had.
Okay.
A one-trick pony or a two-note pony. We're walking around. We're in a place called The Vault at Bizarre Guitars in Reno, Nevada. Anybody who plays guitar has passed through here, whether they're friends of Greg's or heard about the store or just because of his unbelievable selection and the way they can work on guitars here. I saw a picture of Marty Robbins on the wall. I said, God damn it. I said, did you trade guitars with Marty Robbins? Because this guy's one of my all-time favorites, and you said you had a story about him.
Oh, my God. Well, my dad used to play, down in the West Texas town of El Paso. That was one of his first songs that I learned on acoustic guitar. And so anyway, as time went on, we had the store here, and the Sparks Nugget used to have Marty come here in the 70s, 80s, and perform at the Sparks Nugget once every 3 months. And so he would pull up in his amazing tour bus and have his whole band come in and pick out items, whether it be drums or guitars or strings. And in the meantime, he would walk around to my customers in the shop and say he's proud to be my friend, and invite everyone for backstage passes and tickets to the show. And of all the folks that have ever been in my store, he's the number one person that I felt is just up and above the most amazing man ever. And he was super nice to all my customers and just the greatest guy in the world. That when he passed away, it really was like family leaving us.
Man, I watch that guy a lot on YouTube, and there's one clip on YouTube where him and Eddie Rabbitt, the late great Eddie Rabbitt, kind of just go back and forth. They're singing like a medley of songs, and Eddie would sing part of a song, and then Marty would sing part of a song, and just kind of go back and forth. And man, that guy was just so talented. What a songwriter.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. He was my dad's favorite artist growing up, and so we played the albums in the house. And I had a country beginning with all my things, and then when Marty came in here, I was just humbled, and he was just so nice. We've been fortunate to have a lot of amazing folks come in over the year, whether it be Carlos Santana, I've sold a number of guitars to, B.B. King, Merle Haggard, of course. Joe Bonamassa's been in. We've been fortunate to have many people.
God damn, that guy can play his ass off.
Oh, my God.
One guy, a friend of mine, I don't know if they have been through here. 3 guys out of San Angelo, Texas. Real good friends of mine, Los Lonely Boys. Henry Garza plays a Fender Strat.
We opened up for those guys once when I played with the Chuck Ruff group. We opened up for them at the Harrah's main stage in, I don't know, maybe 2000 or whatever it was. But I don't think they ever came to the store that I remember. But
God dang, but that guy's kind of just seemed like an instinctive player. I know his dad taught him how to play guitar, but man, he plays a Fender Strat and he plays it well. That's
Kind of a unique player.
Yeah.
Yeah, unique sound, kind of unique style. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
but
Absolutely. I remember
goddamn,
that
he can
too.
go.
I sat there and watched him when he played at Harrah's. I was kind of shocked. I was thinking, that guy's really good.
Hey, man, what has happened to music?
You know, I tell you exactly.
From you and me, I'm old
you're
school.
asking me, and I got
Yeah.
a great line for that of what's happened to music. I'll tell you exactly. Playing guitar is not the easiest thing in the world. Playing drums, to get good at it, takes a while. Playing bass, it takes a while as well. And people anymore are used to instant gratification. They don't have to look up in the encyclopedias for a report. They go online and go on the computer and instant answer from Google. Or they want to call their friends. They don't have to even dial the phone. They just push 2 buttons and boom, they call their friend. And I think and people like, the Rock Band thing. They'd have a fake kind of guitar. They go through and push a couple buttons and it would give a sound. And to actually perfect an instrument, it takes years of dedication and years of work and study and stuff to do it. And I think people are used to instant gratification, and guitar and music in general is not instant gratification. I think people have gotten lazy. That's what I think.
Really?
That's my take.
But just when I listen to, and this is not to crap all over the current music scene, I'm kind of a stick in the mud. The bands I named earlier, and that was probably not even 20% of my catalog, but that's the stuff that I'm still listening to, the stuff that I grew up on or cut my teeth as far as, my beginnings in the wrestling business. That's where some of my greatest memories are from. And some of the stuff these days is just, I like something with a hook and a groove, and then, a good solo, but something that, I can, just digest or sink my teeth into. From an audio standpoint, you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and the bands you mentioned were kind of 70s, and I grew up in late 60s and 70s bands. Same bands you mentioned are all my favorites, too. But it seems like when 80s came around, it was all about glam rock. It was all about the persona on stage of how you looked and how cool you looked as opposed to how good you could play or great licks. Like Robin Trower, he's not one of those guys that rocks out but can play his ass off. And it just changed. It sort of changed, I think. The glam rock thing came on, and, of course, there was disco. And it just sort of shuffled the classic rock. You're talking about the great hooks and the guitar lines, which is what I thrive on. It kind of shuffled to the back of the bus for whatever reason.
One of the bands that I named earlier, and they had a tragedy many years ago when the building caught on fire. Great White.
Yeah.
I know you played on stage with those guys
Right.
a bunch. God dang, they were one of my favorite bands. I thought they would have been a little more well received than they were, and they were successful, no doubt.
Right.
But same with Y&T. I just thought with that sound, they would have been more well received than they were. Why didn't they get more widely known than they were?
I think one thing, after the fire, the band kind of broke up, and the singer,
But then that was late though.
Yeah, that was later. It's just hard to say. You have different things. It's just hard. It's really hard to say. Maybe the management was lacking. I don't know.
But you know what? And I ask you that question when I've seen so many talented guys in the squared circle that were badass and they had success. But when you look at them, and it's kind of like this: if you and I were watching a wrestling match, I'm going to see something different than you do.
Right.
Because I know it more than you do.
Sure.
Same with you and me listen to the same song. I can hear, hey man, that's pretty damn good, but you're going to take it to a molecular level because you play. So I guess it goes back to the same thing. I guess, some people who aren't as talented as some of the wizards who can play their ass off or wrestle their ass off, sometimes they don't make it as big as the guys that can't. And sometimes it's the presentation of the band, the marketing of the band, the persona of the band. I don't know what it is.
Sometimes it's the production. Sometimes it's the song qualities, the quality of the songs
Right.
that they produce. I always loved Great White myself too. There's been a lot of great bands. Like for me, like Robin Trower, I thought he should have been more famous than he was too. He was an amazing player, played feel from the heart, and that's always important to me. But for a lot of guys, that whole thing kind of changed. Just like you said, the current music, there's not many guys that are playing that style of music with a really great feeling. That's why Tesla's still a really relevant band. Those guys play it from the heart.
Man, those guys, these days when I'm working out, I can't stand commercials, so I keep it on Pandora Radio. And I keep it on the Boston station. So they play a shit pile of Tesla, a lot of Boston.
All right.
God dang, with another band I was just fixing to name. Great White's one of them. Oh, been listening to a lot of Steve Miller Band lately.
All right.
All of a sudden, he's kind of gotten renewed, and I started watching him on YouTube. And he was a student of Les Paul. Did you have any dealings with Steve Miller?
Steve Miller came through here, and they came and they bought some harmonicas and stuff from us back in the 70s. That was the only dealing really had with him and stuff. But He did come through. I always enjoyed his music, though.
Man, I just look right behind you on your right shoulder, and I see Paul Stanley over there. Did y'all have any dealings with Kiss? Because growing up, when I was a kid, Kiss was my favorite band.
You know, I did some mail order stuff with Kiss. I did have a connection to Kiss. I played in a band with a gentleman named Mike Jepp, who was a singer-songwriter for Kiss and wrote a number of songs for them, and I was very close to him. But I never met those guys in person other than just mail order type of things, but we did send them some stuff. And Mike Jepp, of course, wrote songs for them, so I had that connection.
When you see an act blow up as big as Kiss did, and you being a great musician yourself, and what did you think of the Kiss sound?
I thought it was pretty good, man. There was a lot of guys that criticized that they're not that great. They just came to Reno, and it was one of the best shows I have ever seen. Great musicianship and absolutely unbelievable stage presence and show.
And that's what I always get. I mean, are they the tightest band in the world? No, but they don't sound like anybody, and they're pretty damn good.
No, I thought they were.
When
I
the
thought they were
critics
great.
I was like, I don't get it, dude. They're pretty damn good.
I think so too.
And then on top of the showmanship and the brain factor between Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, and Ace and Peter, they had their demons, and the other members would rotate in. But it was the fact that Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley were businessmen along with being musicians who were, on the gas pedal as far as pushing the envelope and, maintaining their direction. And so they had such great success. And as when I got spun up into the popularity of wrestling that I did and was selling all the merchandise that I was, it was like I was reading a book about Kiss, and, they were kind of the kings of merch going back in the day. They're the guys that really pushed the envelope, and it just blew up for them.
Absolutely. I mean, they were smart. Gene Simmons seems to be the brainchild behind that, but they had, dolls and all kinds of, coasters, everything you can imagine for Kiss thing, but it was like a Kiss traveling store, but it went over and they sold tons and tons of merch, and you had the show to go along with it. But no, Kiss delivers it. It's one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen.
All right, let's take a quick pause for the calls here with Greg Golden of the Greg Golden Band, Bizarre Guitars and Bizarre Guns, and give big ups to a sponsor who makes this podcast possible, and that's TrueCar. When you're looking to buy a new car, you want to feel comfortable that you're getting a fair price. And with TrueCar, you can get information that empowers you with pricing context that lets you see what other people in your area paid for the car you want. It's pricing you'll see before going to a dealership so you can feel confident when you show up. And with TrueCar, you can connect with a local certified dealer of your choosing. When you're ready to buy a new car, visit TrueCar to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states.
Is that the new iPhone?
Yeah, got it on T-Mobile. Fastest iPhone deserves America's fastest LTE network.
Introducing the amazing iPhone 8. It's the best iPhone yet, now on America's best unlimited network. For a limited time, save up to $300 on the amazing iPhone 8 after 24 monthly bill credits. And now join T-Mobile's iPhone upgrade program for free.
Eligible trade-in and finance agreement required. If you cancel service, you may lose promo credits. Contact us for details. Video at 480p. Small fraction of users over 50 gigs per month may have reduced speed. See store for details.
Hey, my name is James Petrogallo.
I'm Jimmy Wissman.
Please join us every single Tuesday for Crime in Sports.
So fun.
You like sports?
You don't have to.
Let's just set up a contest and find out what an idiot did wrong. What do you say?
I'm in.
We're going to do that each and every week. We take an athlete, we break him down, we make fun of everything he's ever done.
Yeah. But in order to do that, we have to build up and tell you all about their career and get you to what, James? To grace.
And then watch them fall from grace, as they inevitably do. Join us. Big criminals, small criminals, sports you've never heard of, doesn't matter. It's the crime, it's the comedy. It's such a good time. Join us every Tuesday for Crime in Sports.
You can join us every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com, the Podcast One app, or subscribe on all Apple products.
Find us every Tuesday and laugh at people.
This is Steve Austin, Unleashed.
Hey, man, so how is the music scene here in Reno?
Well, it's a little bit slow, just like the music industry in terms of selling records and stuff. It's a bit slow. You always have the big clubs that have the tribute bands that come through and different things like that. And we do have our share of the larger concerts that come through, and we play here as much as we want. It's just probably like any other scene. The music thing from the 80s and 90s to now has dramatically changed. I hate to say that folks aren't into the music quite as much as they used to be, and maybe that's because it's the music that you and I like that's not being played.
Right.
And there are very few of the big bands that tour. I mean, when Tesla comes through, they sell out. When Kiss comes through, they sell Joe Bonamassa comes through, they sell out. ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons is one of my friends.
Talk to me about his sound a little bit, because there's a guy who's a world-class player, and Jimi Hendrix even said, hey, man, that guy is hellacious on a guitar way back in the day, and he's got just a great tone and sound, but he's underrated because I think he's so low-key, but that summit is bad.
Oh, Billy Gibbons is one of my favorite guitar players. We always do a number of ZZ Top songs, and it's funny because the amp that I use is a very unusual amp, and the first time that I kind of got sold on a Legend amp was because Billy Gibbons endorsed those, and I was a dealer for him. And I'm like, wow, Billy got a great sound out of that. And he's a monster guitar player. Now, his first guitar claim to fame was playing a real 59 Burst. And what a gentleman. I love Billy, man. He's so cool.
Every time he comes through L.A., or a lot of times he'll give me a yell. I first met Billy. We was on a tour in South Africa wrestling in 1997. Billy's a big wrestling fan. He came to the show, and after the show, we're sitting there talking. I said, dude, what are you doing out here? He goes, I guess he'd played a gig. And he stayed a couple of months, and he was living with some Aboriginal tribes. Wow. And he had all these things he was going to bring back, but he was having a blast out there. And when we'd go through Houston, he'd show up. And these days, he's out in Los Angeles. I just passed by him in the Staples Center a few months ago. He was going to the show. But just one of the nicest guys in the world, can play the shit out of a guitar.
He's an amazing person, and I consider him to be a really great friend.
Every time he gives me one of his business cards, and I've got 10 of them, it says Billy Gibbons, friends with Eric Clapton. That's kind of like an inside joke. I guess him and Clapton are tight, but that's the kind of guy he is, because if you ever see Billy Gibbons, he's always got that sneaky smile on his face, and he's got something to talk about.
He's a crazy guy.
Hey, let's walk down this way.
Okay.
And tell me about these guys right here.
Oh, here's a Gibson L5 and an ES 175, West Montgomery L5, and 335s. These are sort of like the jazz guitars. The bigger boxes are sort of jazz electrics, old Gibsons.
Now, will you ever pick something up like this just for the hell of it and just go do something different, or you just like that Les Paul body?
I'm kind of locked into Les Paul, but when let's take, for instance, Frank Hanna comes down here, he'll come in, and the last time he came down, he'll grab certain guitars off of here, and he's a variety guy. I mean, he gets inspired. He'll play a Gretsch one day, a Fender the next, and a Tele, and he gets amazing sound out of anything. I'm kind of a one-trick pony with the Les Paul.
What's the store on these Fender Strats down here?
These are all vintage style Stratocasters, and all kinds of different year guitars, whether they be 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or new Fender custom shop that we saw a lot of.
So how'd you acquire all these guys? Where'd they come about?
Oh, trade-ins, and we buy from other stores and other folks and stuff. So these are all different years, like 60s Stratocasters, 70s, 80s, 90s, and different guys like different things. There's a lot of guys that will play traditional, Teles and Stratocasters, play the country or rock, or like a Stevie Ray Vaughan style, or Jimi Hendrix style, or Martin Knopfler from Dire Straits. He's another one got a great sound on his
God dang, man, that guy's unbelievable. Sometimes it's like, we call it like chicken picking.
Yeah, no, he's
God dang, he's amazing.
Clean, nice, unbelievable tone.
Can you play like that? Use your fingers like that? You just really like that pick? I mean,
that's
an unusual ability.
That's a little bit different style than I'm used to doing.
That cat can go.
Yeah, he can.
Hey, when we were talking
Sultans
about
of Swing, that was his song that I like.
But when we were talking about Merle Haggard a while ago, I wanted to ask you about Glenn Campbell, because Jesus Christ, that guy could smoke a guitar like nobody's business.
No kidding.
Everybody knows that. Did you ever come into contact with that guy?
I never did. I never met Glenn, but he had the most impeccable reputation. He was responsible for Ovation guitars going from nobody's ever heard of them to one of our biggest sellers in the 70s and 80s. And they had all kinds of Glenn Campbell models. We used to sell those. And no, I never met the man. I saw him once at NAMM show in, I think, like 85 or 86, but I never had the opportunity to meet him, but he sure had a great reputation.
Man, that dude could play guitar for damn sure.
No kidding.
Hey, man, what is this?
So that's a star body from Jackson Guitars. And I have a history with Jackson Guitars, Charvel Guitars. I bought a lot of their necks and bodies, and we put together a lot of those guitars in 1981 and 82. Eddie Van Halen kind of made the Jackson famous. And you never heard of a Floyd Rose tremolo?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the Floyd Rose tremolo, I played with Floyd in a band for years, and the very first Floyd Rose tremolo is on a gold top in the case over here, which is a...
I saw this right over here on the end.
And I was in a band with Floyd, and we were recording for an album he was doing, and he wanted me to do some radical trim bends, and all I had was I had a gold top with a Bigsby, and it wouldn't allow you doing crazy like dive bombs things like the guys do, like Randy Rhoads or something. So he made a locking nut and created a locking bridge and use the gold top that I had with the Bigsby. That's the first locking tremolo ever made, and Floyd Rose, it's on his website, but that's a kind of a historically important guitar, and he made it for me.
Hey, man, as I look at some of these guitars here, and we haven't talked about half of them yet, let's go back to the 59 Les Paul.
Okay.
Okay, this guitar is valued at about $350, $400 grand.
Correct.
And then the one back behind me, or where was it?
The V?
The V, about
V.
$300 grand.
Right.
All right, someone comes in here, and they happen to have $354 for this one, or they got $350 or whatever you want for that, and they say, Greg, I got to have this guitar. Would you sell them?
Probably not, because the tax consequences would be unbelievable. If I don't sell it, I don't have to pay tax on it, and I can use it to, to show people that come into the shop. I mean, I'm getting older. Maybe down the road I might, but it would be almost all profit on what we sold it for. So it would be, by the time I got through, what am I going to make? Half of what I sold for, and that's still a chunk of dough. But I kind of like them being here, and it's nice to have these guitars in here. I don't know.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I know you put the tax thing out there, but god dang, when you got something so cool and you're not going to find another one.
Yeah, no,
and you're still young enough to keep enjoying it.
Yeah.
And it's like if you or Frank didn't come down here and even touch that thing, just the fact that you can walk by and look at it and feel it and see that it's still there,
right?
It gives you joy.
And I've used all these guitars. But again, I'm like, my Gold Top, the 54 Gold Top is my favorite guitar, but I like loaning these to Frank Hannon to see the different sounds he gets out on the different things. Like we did that old school video with playing the 58V. It was really cool. It sounded great too.
If you're going out on tour and you've got your 54, something goes haywire, you break a string, something breaks, whatever. How many backups you carry? What's your backup?
I have another 54 Gold Top that I'd routed and put humbuckings on, almost identical to the number one. And I usually have that guitar with me. I usually, most of the shows that we do are within, 10 hours of here. Usually Sacramento, we go to Boise once in a while, or Burley, Idaho, or, Sacramento. So I usually take two guitars with me. And I make sure that we have restrung before I go and check the electronics. So it's really strange. In the last 5 years, as soon as I say this, I will jinx myself, but I've not broken a string or had any issues.
One of the damnedest things I ever saw, it's on YouTube. I've talked about this before. Stevie's playing the hell out of some song, and he breaks a string.
I saw that video.
He just keeps playing. Yep. Here comes his guitar tech. They swap out the straps, and Tommy Shannon, his bass player, looks over because he can see what's up because he's shifting strings, and he sees he's broken a string, but they just keep in stride.
He never missed a lick.
Tommy Layton back there playing on the drums, never missed a lick. Here comes guitar tech, straps him up, and he just keeps on going like, God damn.
I know, that was cool.
Shit's on there.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
Stevie was a cool son of a bitch.
Yeah, he was.
Hey, you dress pretty nice when you play. Stevie was a little over the top. You'd think he was a white pimp.
Yeah.
But I loved his style and loved the way he looked.
Right.
So what's your personal take as far as what you're trying to present out there as a Greg Golden band?
I always have the snakeskin boots,
right.
and usually, some kind of fancy jeans and a cool shirt. You don't want to flaunt yourself as a freaking weirdo or anything, but it kind of goes with the vibe. I mean, I'm a 60s, 70s guitar player, and it kind of goes with the vibe with that.
Yeah.
I used to be, when I was in good shape, I'd wear a tank top and, short hair, and now I got a mustache, longer hair, and sort of.
Were you ever into the stage theatrics? Were you ever running up and down and doing shit, or was you just there?
No, that's not me. In fact, that's something I work on, is to try to move around more, but I've never been an 80s glam guy.
Right.
But I can appreciate, all aspects. Usually, unfortunately, what I saw in the 80s was a lot of guitar players that had more glam than talent.
Right.
I like to see talent and glam. That's kind of tough to put together, both.
Yeah, but it's interesting when you see like 90% glam and 10% talent. And
yeah.
But they're one of the hottest acts in the world.
Right, no.
And I'm not naming names, but I mean, there's been a lot of them out there. No. And hey, whatever works for you works.
Right.
Let's go down the road here.
Sure.
And point something out to me, or tell me what is just something to talk about.
Here's a couple of 1959 Gibson Switchmasters, and that's a 3-pickup jazz-style guitar. Very, very rare. I've had those two right there for forever and ever. Those are both super clean guitars. I have a 1957 Fender Telecaster that's a Lake Placid Blue original maple neck. That's a very unusual, very rare guitar. Dot Inlay 1958 Gibson 335, really super rare, one of the rarest guitars in the world.
The Telecaster has some nice wear and tear on it. It looks like it's been down the road and played a bunch of gigs.
And because the finish is it's Lake Placid blue, but knowing the finishes, it's very yellow and it's tobacco smoke.
Right. Hey, talk to me about these Rickenbacker basses. Because, man, when I was a kid, I decided to try to play the bass guitar. Went over to the music shop. Dropped $275 on a Sunburst. I don't know what brand it was. But, boy, I tell you what, I've always heard about these things. And here I've got a few of them sitting in front of me. What's so good or great about the Rickenbacker bass?
Well, the Rickenbacker bass is, Rickenbacker is a business that was formed in California. And I've always liked the 4003. It's got a really cool body shape, made popular by Deep Purple. And also, guys from Yes. They always have a clean, really super clean sound. I know that Frank Hannon on the first album played bass on some of the songs, and he bought a 4003 Rickenbacker bass for me, and it just sounds absolutely amazing, especially with him playing it. But the Rickenbacker bass is a super, super clean bass and complements like a lot of guys playing a Fender Jazz bass or Precision bass. It's kind of the three rock basses I would say would be a Fender Jazz, Precision, and Rickenbacker bass.
Hey, man, you being lead guitarist, you're working with, the bass. You're in the band, dude. Big Maiden fan over here. And I always like Steve Harris's playing. I love Flea's playing. And I love, God dang, what's the other guy I was going to name? Just went off the tip of my tongue. Who are some of the bass players that you've enjoyed listening to?
Let's see. A bass player from ZZ Top. Always liked Roger Glover from Deep Purple. Those guys were a real big influence for me. Rainbow also. All the bands that we've mentioned always had a killer bass player. And they played, the bass players I like the best really are the bass players that aren't playing a million notes, that are playing just the essential notes. That's more important than a guy that's riffing out like a lead guitar player on bass. And that's the standard. It sets the standard because you can have two things. You can have a bass player that plays a million notes, and you can't have a guitar player that does that. Or you can have a guitar player that plays a million notes and a bass player that lays it down with fewer notes.
Right.
Can't have both usually.
Interesting. What kind of drummer you like, man?
A guy that's in the pocket, plays a lot of simple notes and just works on the beats with a precision, fills when it calls for it. If you play with a solo drummer, one of the best drummers that I ever played with was Chuck Ruff from the Edgar Winter Group. That guy could lay it down like no other. Always behind the beat, and by that I mean instead of playing like rushing the beat, he would play behind the beat, which gives you plenty of time on a blues or any sort of it's just called in the pocket.
Man, it's funny because my dad played in a band in Victoria, Texas, way back in the day when I was a kid, the dance band, Fridays and Saturday nights, and the name of the band was Arnold Parker and the Mustangs. My dad played lead guitar. Arnold Parker was the lead singer. Arnold always sang right behind a note. And when I listen to my dad sing, he's spot on, and my dad sang kind of lead vocals as well. But the way Arnold kind of was just back of Frog's hair, if I will, threw me off as a vocal style. It fucked with my head because I was always waiting on that vocal part to happen, and he was behind the note, and that fucked me up.
See, it's all styles. Like for me, I always play behind a beat a hair. And I always like a drummer. I don't like a drummer that plays on top of the beat because as soon as they play on top of the beat, it rushes things. And I'm not sure about the vocals so much. Depends on the song.
Right.
But I've been kind of, like when I first came in and did recording with Frank, I thought I could do it without a click track. And your excitement and you're working on songs, and almost inevitably you're playing either a tad fast or you're playing on top of the beat as opposed to playing behind. If you have a click track, then you're behind it as opposed to playing rush, rush, rush. And so anyway, I've learned a lesson with that. So I personally like playing behind, especially a drummer playing behind the beat. And Chuck Ruff was the master of that.
So how long does it take, like if you guys were going to strike up a jam session somewhere, all of a sudden, if the drummer is a little bit cattywampus, as I would say, a little bit off or behind the beat or just not keeping time, what do you tell a guy?
We haven't really had that problem.
I know you're dealing with higher-end musicians and that, but I mean, just what if?
It's hard to, you can't really criticize a guy's talent. Time to maybe make a change for another drummer.
That's a great goal, man. You can do whatever you want. No, I'm just wondering on a jam session.
You can kind of tell him,
me getting in the ring from back in the day, and all of a sudden the guy he's at 1 or 2 years experience, and then okay.
kind of clue them in a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
You know,
Here's what's really going on here, dude.
You know, you always it's like when you're a senior, when you're the kind of the senior musician, you can kind of go through and help the guys that are, you know, maybe haven't had as much experience with you, or kind of direct them on what you want to see in that particular player and stuff. But usually it's just communication. Some guys have attitude and it doesn't work out, and that's time to, you know, change the players.
Right. Hey man, these guitars up here are beautiful. I recognize the body. I'm trying to read the name. What are
Paul
those?
Reed Smith.
Paul Reed Smith.
Yes, and
those are gorgeous. I mean, will you pick one of these up every now and then, or I know you're a Les Paul guy, but
no, these are
unique.
fantastic guitars. They're very unique, and Paul makes one of the best guitars in the world. In fact, one of my guys is on a plane leaving tomorrow to go back to Maryland. We're going to design a run of about 30 guitars. If you see this pink one here, we have this. This was designed by myself. We went back and designed the woods, and this is a Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, all gold hardware, 5708 pickups, a one-piece quilt maple top as opposed to a two-piece like most guitars are, etc. And Paul Reed Smith makes an amazing guitar, unbelievable.
So how do you go about designing a guitar? I mean, you know, what are you thinking? I mean, they got the basic shape. What have you done? Or are you just, you know, throwing the ingredients on, or saying, hey, here's what we're going to do here?
No, we take their basic design and we'll add like the certain kind of hardware, like we have that's like the half and half, so it's half gold and half steel, half chrome hardware. And their hottest pickups, which are the 5708s, which are like 8 ohms plus in the rear, kind of like my 54 top. And then a one-piece top as opposed to a two-piece top. And we weighed these are mahogany bodies. We weighed these for lightness. Most guys like a lighter guitar, less heavy on the neck, and it seems like lighter guitars have more sustain and more liveliness. And we picked Indian rosewood. We went through and I actually tapped on the rosewood necks with a little mallet thing, to ones that resonated. And so we took the most resonant necks of so forth, picked out the pearl inlays, and then got Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, which is Brazilian rosewood is a wood that's like a part of the endangered species, so it's like a...
That's easy for you to say. I thought you were saying endangered species.
I almost said that. So you need a CITES license to sell this. Anyway, so it's a very unusual guitar, and we kind of put together the components of what we want to do with it in different colors, like Trampus green, and there's the Bonnie pink, and root beer, and natural, and so forth.
Okay, that one's sold. The pink one's sold. When's the dude going to come pick it up?
We probably had to have it out here by the end of the month.
Okay, now what's the difference on a technical term between the one-piece and the two-piece body?
Oh, just like it's a one-piece or two-piece flame maple neck. So in other words, instead of being made out of one piece of wood, it's made with two. I like the one piece a little better because it has to be better wood to do one piece, because two piece you can have one piece that's maybe, you know, slightly flawed, or there's a flaw in the center, you take it out. One piece, it shows it all.
Okay, what we got down here in the vein of acoustic guitars?
And
why are these in the vault?
These are all, okay, first of all, the vault here is 50 to 55% humidity and 68 to 72 degrees at all times. And so we keep our acoustic guitars. It's kind of like if you and I were going out to the cigar bar and we're going to smoke a cigar. We want to smoke one where the cigar has been out in the desert, or we want one that's been in a humidor. Same thing with acoustic guitars. Not so much electrics, because they don't, but these are hollow, so they're very sensitive. Like Nevada guitars, not humidifier, always dried out, cracks, broken, the bridge raised, the fingerboards are dried out. These are like humidified cigars. And so we have these in the vault and keep temperature control and humidity control to keep them looking and playing the best that they can be. And we're proud. We have like Larrabee guitars, Taylor guitars, Martin guitars, various Fender guitars. We're fortunate to have the major lines, and we sell a lot of acoustic guitars.
All right, if I would say, hey, Greg, I want a badass acoustic guitar right here today because I'm going to start learning how to play guitar, which one of those guitars would you recommend Steve Austin get?
Would you want electric at all, or just acoustic?
I like the electric capabilities, but let's just go acoustic. Take that out.
Straight acoustic, I'd say, you can't go wrong on a D28, HD28 Martins. The Taylor cutaways, they have electronics and there's all kinds of various. We have 65 different Taylors in stock, and there's a lot of those that are rosewood with a solid spruce top. Different models that have different. We'd have to go through and kind of get you got big hands and stuff, so there's some that have larger fingerboards, some that have narrower fingerboards, some that are bright, some that aren't quite as bright, and different kinds of electronics and stuff too.
If I was to try to learn how to play guitar, would you tell me, hey, Steve, just get you an acoustic, or would you say, hey, get you an electric, get you a small amp so you can hear yourself? Because it seems like people have an easier time just as far as watching people play on an electric guitar than it is the acoustic. Seemingly easy for me to say because of the neck. What is the deal? Because nobody shreds as much on an acoustic as they do on the solid body stuff, or is it just because I'm listening to the acoustics of it?
No, I think acoustic guitar is definitely harder to play than electric.
Okay, I'm right.
Yeah, and plus you have lighter strings on an electric. The acoustic guitar, I like playing some acoustic. I'm not much of an acoustic player. Like Frank Hannon plays. Frank Hannon, Tesla, was pretty much one of the first guys that brought acoustic guitars into the classic rock world. And so he's the exception to the rule on the acoustics. I find acoustics a little harder to play than electrics. If I was going to recommend for you like classic rock, I would get like a small amp and some sort of electric guitar. That's what I would do.
What electric guitar would you tell me to get?
What's your price range?
God damn, I knew he was going to say that. I'm going to cheap out on you.
Okay.
$500.
I would say
No, I got it. $1,000.
$1,000 bucks?
$1,000. God damn, I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I would say
sky's the limit. $1,000.
I would say probably an American Strat of some sort.
American Strat.
And then I'd say at the $500 price point, I would say a Mexican Strat. And then you're talking in the $2,000 range. I'd say use Les Paul down here.
Damn, I have to go Les Paul. I got to go.
Yeah, Les Paul. Yeah. I think for me that's the ultimate.
Hey, you talked to me a while ago about smoking a cigar. You want to hear my cigar story?
Sure.
Down in New Orleans, filming Expendables. I think I was number 32 on the call sheet. You know anything about call sheets?
No.
The higher you up on a call sheet means you're a bigger star. I was number 32. Sylvester Stallone was number 1. So I got a small part in his movie. So we're down there in New Orleans filming, and then we went over to Brazil and finished the rest of it. So anyway, I'm off. Me and my wife were walking through the French quarters, and I just got finished stopping Skull for about the second or third time. I've stopped for probably 10, 12 years now. So anyway, I finished, Skull, and I was on set. Sly loves his cigars, and we were in the makeup trailer one time. He goes, Yo, Steve, you want a cigar? Are you into cigars at all? And I'm like, no, man, I'm not really into cigars, but I appreciate you asking. So my wife and I walked through the French Quarter. I was drinking a Bloody Mary, a margarita, whatever I was having a drink, and I was thinking, you know what? There's a cigar shop over there. I got to have a vice. I stopped Skull if I just, puff on a cigar every here and there. I said, fuck, I'll go try a cigar. So went to the cigar shop and, looking around, and I don't know what the fuck to buy. I don't smoke cigars. So I got to buy the most expensive one they got. So I don't know if it was the most expensive one they got, but I think I paid $20 or $25 for a cigar. For me, that's a lot of money because I'm cheap.
Yeah, no, that's...
Anyway, I got the little cutters, got the lighter, went up to the hotel room, out on the balcony, staying in a pretty nice hotel. Expendables is putting me up. Thank you, Sly. I broke his neck in the movie. Anyway, sorry about that, Sly. So I'm sitting there, and my wife's having her drink, and I'm over there with my drink, and I go through the whole process, kind of put it in my mouth. What they do, and I'd like to give him a blowjob or something. kayfabe. So I'm sitting there doing the thing with the cigar. I light it up. Man, I took the tip off, cut it on the end, lit it up, started puffing on that thing for a little bit, and I was kind of thinking, man, I don't know too much about this, but I'm not inhaling. I'm just puffing on the damn thing, Greg. And after about 5 minutes, my wife says, well, what do you think? Did you find your new vice? She's going to be supportive or whatever I've done. And she goes, how is it? And I said, it tastes like somebody just shit in my mouth. So that was the first and last cigar I'd ever smoked. So, yeah, going back to the humidor thing, I just had to bring up my cigar story. Not that it pertains to anything music-related or your guitar shop. And I'm sorry if I've drug you down into the quagmire that I exist in.
No, it's
that's
weird.
my cigar story.
I don't smoke cigars either. I brought it up just for the sake of the humidity on the guitars. But I can relate to somebody else.
Hey, let's shift gears for a second. Let's go back to your bodybuilding days. What made you decide to get on stage and compete?
My good buddy Phil Pape that owns a bodybuilding supplement shop here in Reno. And
I saw him on the cover of that magazine over there.
Yeah. And I came in and I was this real husky guy, and he goes, how much do you weigh? And I weighed about 275. And he goes, you should compete. We'll whittle you down in about 3 or 4 months if you followed a diet. And I thought I was kind of doing good with the diet, but he had it dialed in. And sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, I was really lean. And next thing I know, I'm doing, classes with him of flexing and different things and the different poses and all that stuff. And he was my main guy that kind of got me involved with that.
Yeah, but what got you in the gym to begin with? I mean, here you are, you're working with your dad. I'm assuming you're playing guitar a lot.
Right.
What drove you to the gym? Were you a football player in high school?
I was. I played all the sports in high school and was very athletic my whole life. And actually we played even on the adult basketball team and baseball team here at Bizarre Guitar. We played for years, and I coached baseball. And I was always in good shape, and it just strength came natural to me. My dad was into boxing and was a national welterweight boxing champ, so my whole house was, boxing, speed bag, heavy bags when I was a kid growing up. And my son was a 2-time All-American for baseball, and so my household was about sports, and so I always managed to stay in good shape and kind of be in good shape. Kind of came easy. My dad's genetics was always that way. And so I just sort of took the knowledge of my buddy that encouraged me and just kind of went with that and did pretty good with it. I took Mr. Nevada. I was second overall in the state for all physiques, and when I was 50. And then I went and competed in the Grand Nationals in Las Vegas, and for over 50, I placed third in the world.
Hey, man, what was your training routine like? Because you'll hear these guys say, hey, man, hit everybody apart twice a week. And then these guys, hey, man, I'm just hitting everything once a week. And then people say, God dang, that ain't enough frequency. You got to hit that damn thing. But then the other guys are saying, if you hit it one time a week, that high intensity, that's all you need. So going back to those days when you were training heavy, what was your training routine?
This is cool because I haven't talked about this in years, but I have great insight for that. I train each body part once a week, and I split it up to where I did back and tris. I would do abs the next day, abs and calves. And then I would do chest and buys, which, if you're hitting your chest one day and you're hitting your tris the next, you sort of hit your tris really hard and your tris not so hard on your chest day. And you hit your buys a little bit on your buy day, actually a lot, and then really heavy on your buy day. So it's kind of that. And then shoulders, and then I would do quads and hamstrings. And I would do 5 on and 2 off.
How were you with doing the 2 off? Because every now and then when I just go, hey, I'm going to train everything once a week, and then it's just hard. I think I'm ADD, and I'm a little, more's better. So it's hard for me to take the 2 days off. So sometimes I would go, the 3 on 1 off, 2 on 1 off. And that way I could kind of better cope with the 1 day a week system.
I would go with my energy levels. If I felt like I had energy, there's so much energy that I couldn't be able to sleep that unless I worked out. And I never did much aerobics. I never had much rest between sets. I learned how to train extremely fast between sets, but extremely efficient. I would do some oddball stuff once in a while, but usually I stayed, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, or 5 days on, 2 days off. I would kind of mix it up. I just go with my energy level. If I felt drained, I'd definitely take it off.
These days, what I do now is just because life's going to throw days off at me, just because of scheduling and traveling or doing whatever. So, man, if I start and basically training everything once a week still, I'll just keep going because I know inevitably I'm going to have a couple of days on the road. Like right now, I haven't trained in 2 days. Tomorrow I will hit the gym. Today I was going to come over and talk to you. Tomorrow I'll probably go out there and crush 2 body parts and get back in a groove. But the way I train now is just build it in so that whenever life throws in those built-in days off, that's where I take my days off.
I had the same thing too, kind of. I mean, I'd be here at the store and I'd go to January, I'd go to NAMM show, which is where they show all the music products, and I wouldn't be able to work out 2 days or something. And I'd do the same thing. I'd make it up on different days.
Well, talk to me about your stage presence when you were all jacked up, because, dude, you were weighing 275, right? So it kind of reminds me of Kane playing with Alice Cooper.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
big jacked up dude.
Yeah.
So what was your stage persona back then, or what was your presence? I mean, because all of a sudden when you show up and you play the hell out of a guitar, you're jacked up, and got some pretty good vascularity going. You're not the norm. Most guys that are up on that stage are kind of skinny dudes that are just musicians or ectomorphs. Or whatever your body type is. I'm just saying they ain't all jacked up.
No, exactly.
So you know what I'm saying.
I wasn't playing. I still probably do a gig a month. So I and I always wore a tight tank top. Like when I played with Chuck Rupp, I have a lot of photos where I looked extremely huge, kind of out of place, really. And then over the years, I just kind of got more involved with really the bodybuilding than actually playing, even though I always had a band. So it's just kind of like give and take. You sort of more into bodybuilding than less in playing, and I always had the store as a constant. And now, of course, it's all about playing.
It seems to me, going back to your bodybuilding and your training, you were dealt a pretty good set of genetics, because you said you didn't do a whole lot of cardio stuff. And right now, I mean, you haven't trained in a while, but you're still lean. You have the outline of a six-pack. Were you allergic to cardio, or just did not like to do it, or you didn't feel like you needed it?
It overtrained me. And when I did any kind of cardio, it's really strange. When I added, like Phil Pape, who's a very knowledgeable, he was a top Mr. USA prospect, Mr. Nevada for 3 or 4 years. And so he had me on the program to begin with. But when I started doing cardio 3 days a week is when I always got a sore throat or a cold. If I didn't add cardio into the mix, I didn't get sick, which told me that I was overtraining with my body, because that's the bane of any bodybuilder, is overtraining. Everybody overtrains. Undertraining is the key. You know, I tried to limit my workouts. Like when I would do back and tries, I would limit that workout to 45 minutes, but I would kick ass in 45 minutes.
Right.
And I'd walk out of there, and my head would be like, I'd be the highest high ever imaginable. But it seemed like cardio, whenever I did any kind of cardio, and I didn't even do it right before I competed, I did it through diet and just my training ability. I mean, I have my heart rate just racing, and I take a short rest, and I try to shorten the rest between. But it seemed like for me personally, when I added cardio in there, it overtrained me.
What was your off-season diet compared to when Phil and you started cutting it down to get you in contest shape?
I ate pretty much anything I wanted when I was like the 275 range.
Yeah. Okay. When you're at the 275
and then even when I was training with before a contest, I mean, I kind of went obsessive with the protein. I was taking about 300 grams of protein in, divided by 8 meals, maybe even 9 meals. And I'd have a little carbs in the morning and before workout and after workout. And then after that, strictly vegetable carbs. I'm OCD with things, as you can probably see from the store.
Right.
And I was with my diet. And I'm knowledgeable, still knowledgeable and all. It's the first time I've talked about this in years. I like it.
Yeah, but you know, in talking to and listening to those old conversations, because there's still some guys that I rubbed shoulders with that were in that classic or the golden era bodybuilding, that when Schwarzenegger was around, when, you know, of course he's still around in the movies, but when Arnold was the big gun. And one of my friends was his training partner. And back in the day, you know, when those guys are getting ready for a contest, these days, if you read anything about all this stuff that's going on, man, everybody, like I have my diet written down. It was made up for me. And, you know, I follow it to a T. I don't get off of it. But back in the day, well, and again, let me factor in the fact that you're talking about guys with world-class genetics.
Right.
When you're talking about the Arnolds, the golden era of bodybuilding, those guys back then, you know, so they would kind of eat what they wanted. But then cardio didn't really exist back then. I mean, there were no, you know, stationary bicycles. There were no treadmills. There were no elliptical machines in the gym. Those guys, every now and then, I think Arnold would jog up and down the beach, but I think probably more to look at women than he was trying to get in shape.
Right.
What were you doing as far as just to get stage ready? Did you just drop the carbs out? Because you were probably at, what, 6% body fat in those pictures I'm seeing
maybe
you?
less even.
Maybe less, but
yeah.
I mean, awesome
actually,
shape.
those photos you saw weren't the contests.
Right.
That was just between.
So what were you doing?
That.
Were you dropping all the carbs?
No, just dropping the carbs.
I'm imagining this was before everybody was weighing everything as well.
Right, that's true. But I never really did, you know, the cardio thing. I think I have, looking at my father and my uncles that were alive and stuff, I think I had exceptional genetics for bodybuilding, for strength and stuff. And I have really super long arms, so it's harder to build up arms. But for some reason, I would do less is more. Like, for instance, like a lot of guys would do, you know, they go in and do 12 sets of curls. I'm like, I would do 4 sets of curls a week, but I would use like 75 pounders for strict curls. I mean,
right.
I'm as strong as a bull, but it's less is more. But I gear up to put 100% into it too.
Hey man, we're over here. We're in Bizarre Guitars, and we're down here in the basement in the vault, and you got all these badass guitars. Hell, I was just next door, and you got Bizarre Guns.
That's correct.
The gun shop. When did you get in the gun business? If you started Bizarre Guitars in '74, when did you start Bizarre Guns?
About 1985. I added the guns. And oddly enough, how that started was I coached a lot of baseball, and my sons, it seemed like all my sons' friends, their fathers were policemen, and I was always into collecting guns. I grew up on a ranch, more so to speak, you know, in Vegas, and always had a pistol, always had a rifle, shotgun, bird hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting, etc. And got really like into old guns and kind of started buying some older guns and became knowledgeable with it. And I opened up a small section in the store here with guns, and I love the guns.
So are you a tactical guy? Do you hunt? Like, how do you use?
Don't really hunt anymore. Just have guns for home defense, self-defense, and we cater a lot to the local police departments. And you know, I'm not like a gun-toting fanatic, although I believe that the American right to protect others, I mean, like one of the facts is if you have a concealed weapons permit, which I do have, you're 7 times more likely to save someone in the act of a felony assault than the actual police, and that's because of the fact that there's a lot more people with CCWs than without. It's sad, unbelievably sad, with that Vegas shooting that just happened, especially that's my hometown. And so, like for us to sell bump stocks and the special things that emulates the full auto things, forget it. We're not doing that. I do have full auto weapons here, but you have to have the same clearance as the FBI that guard the president, which I do for the full auto guns that I do have. And so there's always the debate, guns, no guns, etc. But I've been proud to, we don't sell, we sell to who we want to. If somebody comes in and they act suspicious or act weird or gang related or whatever, they're not welcome to buy in my store.
Hey man, so with you running everything here with Bizarre Guitars being as big and as successful as it is, and there's pictures of everybody that's damn near been in the music business here, and the gun shop is busy, but you came in when we were going to do the podcast. So how are you running all this? This has been going on, I know for years, for 40 years and 30 years respectively. So are you in a position now where you've got somebody, kind of running the spaceship for you, and you can kind of, do the music thing and do other things, or what? How do you juggle this?
I still work a lot of hours in the store, not nearly as many as I used to. I used to work 100-hour weeks, was kind of the norm. I have really good help, and my average help has been with me about 20 years. And so I have Bruce as my store manager of Bizarre Guitar, and John Clement, who was Reno PD and Alameda County Sheriff. In fact, all the people in my gun shop are either ex-military, current military, or ex-police.
What's the number one gun sold over there? Are you selling more hunting stuff, or is it tactical stuff for the police guys?
No, I'd say number one selling gun is a Glock 19, Glock 17. Handguns for self-defense is our number one thing. We do sell tactical shotguns. We do sell deer rifles. But we do a lot with the Reno Police Department and Sparks Police Department, etc.
What's next for you?
I want to keep going with the store and keep working with my music. Frank Han and I are in the midst of recording and working on a second full-length album that we should have out in the next few months. We're not like we have to have a big rush to get it done. Work on that. Work on some live shows, and I've kind of, as you get older, you sort of naturally slow down a little bit. I don't have quite the energy levels nor the energy to do things I used to do, but I'm still in really good shape and so happy to be healthy and my family healthy, and so just looking forward to see what the next future brings.
I got to ask you about your wife, Shonda, because she does interviews down here in the vault, and she does awesome interviews. With the who's who of music. And I was just watching her interview Zach Wilde and a lot of other guys that I've looked up to it and listened to much of their music. Coming from the world you come from, growing up, being born in Vegas, moving over here, being in the music business, coming out of the bodybuilding scene, I know you've been married for about 10 years. I got to hear the story about how you met your lovely wife, if you want to tell it.
Long story. I met her at a wedding. Anyway, she was there with a friend, and I was there, and we exchanged phone numbers shortly after I was single. So was she, and we became engaged about a year later. And so we've been together now. It's going on 9 years.
Long story short.
Yeah, it's a pretty short story.
How was the music business with respect to the sanity level in maintaining a stable family life? Speaking just for myself, and not specifically, being on the road 300 days a year, traveling around the world in the business of professional wrestling, a lot of shit can happen. For me, a lot of shit did. What about with you and the music? I mean, maybe not around the world, but it's a crazy business.
I was here a lot of hours, and it was hard on home life, although I made time for my son was growing up to do baseball with him and to coach and stuff. But I put in so many hours, it was like I didn't have a great, unbelievable social life. Really never went on vacation much. And really didn't have time to pursue my music either, because I was in the midst of, trying to, keep my business alive and to be successful in that. And that was kind of my number one goal, was to have my business succeed.
Before we wrap up, tell me about the Greg Golden Band and what you've got coming up, because, again, everybody knows me. I don't bullshit about anything. If I say something's good, it's good. I really, really like that album from 2015. So I know you're hot and heavy trying to do more things and do more things with Frank. So what's next?
What's next is like, for instance, this last weekend I went down to Frank's and we recorded 2 more original songs. And those weren't, I mean, again, I brought the songs in, the licks, how I thought they would be in the order. And Frank, took those and changed those in a wonderful way and added some amazing parts and had me slow down the guitar and add some different guitar parts. And so we're just piecing together our best songs and trying to make the album as good as it can possibly be.
When do you think that thing will be available?
I'm going to say, March of 2018. We were thinking end of the year, but it's not a big rush. And Frank's going to Brazil, opening up for Deep Purple and Lynyrd Skynyrd in December. So he's going to be a busy schedule, and it takes him to go over this with me, too.
Well, before we leave, talk to me about social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, website that people can find you or Bizarre Guitars at. We have a website, bizarreguitar.com, for the store. Social media, we are all over social media, like the Greg Golden Band. Greg Golden Band is on there, and that's probably our best place to contact us on social media, on the Facebook. We're located on Facebook for Bizarre Guns, for Bizarre Guitar, the Greg Golden Band, In the Vault with Shonda Golden. All those are on Facebook as well. Yeah, man, if you get a chance, Google In the Vault with Shonda, and she does a great interview with a lot of different cats, and Greg's there a lot of the time. But anyway, hey, dude, it was awesome talking to you. I want to give I'd like to say one more thing. Okay. After being in the music business all these years, one of the downfalls that I have noticed is you have a girlfriend, a wife that was against or jealous of your music. And I have been down that road many times myself. And my wife, unlike other wives and stuff, has encouraged me with my music since the beginning. And that was kind of the beginning. I didn't mention that earlier, but that was kind of the beginning. In the last 9-10 years, when I really started putting time into the music, I was encouraged versus discouraged to continue my music and to pursue my music career. And she also does a lot of charity work for the store. She has a charity called Golden Tampon, of all things, and what that is, that's for the kind of the homeless ladies here in town that can't afford food and they can't afford hygiene products and things. And so she raises an amazing amount. She raised 1,200 boxes of those things in her last outing, and so that's kind of her main charity. We do some things with the food bank, etc. So I'm proud. She's sort of our representative for charity and helping people. She's a great lady, and she's helped me immensely. Hey, man, it was good meeting you and good talking to you. Next time we hook up. Absolutely, man. Maybe Frank will be here, or maybe someone else, or you know what I'd like to do? Set up a jam session and just shoot the shit while you and the guys play some songs, if that's up your alley. Always up my alley. I'd like to see you come out and play some bass or guitar with us as well. And I've always been a big fan, and Expendables was a great movie, and the best part was you in it in the movie. And I'm really admired your physique and your accomplishments and everything you've done as well. It sure is a pleasure meeting you. I'm hanging in there, Greg. From the vault here at Bizarre Guitars in Reno, Nevada. Steve Austin with Greg Golden. We're out. Adios.
Let me tell you what's going down. We
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. But before I do that, I want to thank my guest, Greg Golden, the Greg Golden Band. And for something to watch, jump on YouTube real quick and just type in Greg Golden Band. They perform a song, I believe it was Cherokee, at the Forte Awards. I think that's a great song. There's a hell of a solo in that. Great vocals on there. There's the Greg Golden Band demo tape where both of the singers go through kind of a melody of songs. Towards the end, Greg hits a badass blues guitar solo. I'm telling you, these guys are really tight. They're great musicians. And check out the album on iTunes. It cost me about $10 to download the thing. And it's just music that is right in my wheelhouse. Growing up when I did, in the genre of bands and the kind of music that I listen to. Good lyrics, very tight, guitar-led, great rhythm section. So I just enjoy the hell out of the band. I wouldn't put them over if I didn't think it was worth the shit. So give it a listen if you want to, but go to YouTube first and you can catch them. And, man, the dudes are just tight. So if you enjoy them, send me an email, questions@steveaustonshow.com. Or if you didn't like them, send me an email to questions@steveaustonshow.com. If you're into the kind of music that I'm into, I think you'll dig it. It's a great sound. So thank you, Greg. I enjoyed talking to you. I look forward to seeing you again down the road when I come up to Reno again and continue my search. Hey, man, all those shirts I'm wearing on Broken Skull Challenge are available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. I got a beer. It's called Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA. You can find it at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California. If you aren't in Cali, check InsideTheCellar.com and see if they ship to your state. And if you need a badass knife, check out the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife or the new Working Man's knife, and you can find them at my new Amazon store, and Amazon has the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin, and I want to say thank you one more time to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, because that's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. And you can find all of my sponsors at podcast1.com. Just click on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page and then click on the Steve Austin Show banner. And last but not least, speaking of Podcast One, the new Podcast One app is now available for download at the App Store or Google Play. There ain't another podcast app like this one anywhere, and that's because the new Podcast One app is loaded with some cool features that let you do a lot more than just listen to your favorite shows. You can access behind-the-scenes photos, articles, and connect with other fans of the shows you like. Watch over 1,000 360 virtual reality videos, and you can actually watch some of your favorite shows in virtual reality. It's like you're sitting right in the same room with them. So get to the App Store or Google Play and download the Podcast One app now. Folks, until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Rush into Old Navy today for up to 50% off store-wide. Get dresses from $15 for women, $12 for girls. Plus, one day only tomorrow, take 50% off all Old Navy active at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 10/16 to 10/20, select styles only. Active offer 10/20, excludes in-store clearance.
Shooting suspect arrested, threat to kill the president. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The suspect in the shooting of 6 people in Maryland and Delaware, including 3 who died, has been arrested. Wilmington, Delaware Police Chief Robert Tracy says 37-year-old Radi Labib Prince was taken into custody by ATF agents who were searching an area in northern Delaware shortly after they found his car.
When he saw that they had spotted him, he actually took off running, threw the gun, and they were able to apprehend him about 75 feet later and recover the gun where he threw him.
Investigators say